Hey, I woke up at 5:40 a.m. this morning and I've only slept for 3 hours, and then I went out of this house, took a photo, and then came back here and slept back, and then at 8:45 I woke up again and I went out there and took a photo and then came back, and here I am. What's up? It's a culture detective here investigating your favorite movies. And today I'm going to be doing a film review. Okay, right. I'm going to explain why did I have to wake up so early and then go out and take a photo and come back. It's a film class homework that I'm doing. So I'm literally sacrificing myself for film. So please, USC, UCLA, accept me, please. Anyways, today I'm going to be doing a movie review on Cure from the year 1997, written and directed by Kurosawa Kiyoshi. And this film has been on my watch list for an extremely long time already. Man, my hair. I didn't comb my hair, by the way. This is like. Alright, so Cure is a horror film from Japan, written and directed by Kurosawa Kiyoshi. And no, he is not related to Kurosawa Akira at all. But this has been in my watch list for a very long time because I've heard that this is one of the greatest J-horror films of all times. Also, apparently, this film is in the top 10 favorite films of Bong Joon-ho. Bong Joon-ho, one of my favorite directors of all times. And also on top of that, the trailer for the Eureka Entertainment release of this film on Blu-ray is one of the best film trailers I've ever seen in my life. So altogether, I've been really hyped up to watch this film, and a couple nights ago, I finally watched it, and it is stunning. It is stunning. It really is one of my favorite horror films I've ever seen in my life, up there with The Shining, and that's saying a lot. That's a huge freaking deal. So Cure is about a series of murder taking place around Tokyo. We have our main character, Takabe, who is a police detective. He's trying to solve this serial murder. And this film is basically a police procedural, except, of course, as it goes along, it gets stranger and crazier and weirder and more abstract. And, yeah, I guess, on the surface, on paper, it doesn't sound like a huge deal. A series of murders, a police detective slowly going insane after being obsessed with the case more and more and more, the usage of amnesia and hypnosis. A lot of horror movies use these same tropes, but there's just something about Cure that just makes it so much more special and so much more well done. The unstable main character element of the film is actually really well done. And a lot of movies try to pull this off, but end up making the main character feel like a mess. Making the main character unstable psychologically is actually way tougher than you'd think it would be. And I also think the mystery in this film is done really well. I don't know why, maybe it's an age thing, but as I grow up more and as I watch more films, the less films intrigue me. Like, the less mysterious films mystify me. Like, there are a lot of murder mysteries out there, and I watch them, and it's like, it's not even all that mysterious. I'm not even all that intrigued. But Cure, it's different. It's really different. And it's all thanks to the brilliant and compelling writing of Kurosawa Kiyoshi, as well as his immaculately cold and distant style. The cinematography of this film is really great. It's really spacey, has a lot of wide shots and long takes, and I really like horror films that take on a more art house direction. Earlier last year for Halloween, I watched Audition by Miike Tagashi, which is also really similar to this one, except this one actually came out before Audition, so maybe Audition took a lot of inspiration from this one. But just like in Audition, there are a lot of slow, long takes and wide angles, and it just sort of creates a sense of space, but also a sense of distance and coldness. Like, we don't even feel what the characters are feeling because we're not even supposed to. It's not supposed to be emotionally derived. Rather, we're supposed to guess it from afar, trying to understand the situation from a far distance. I also really like the score, despite the fact that it pretty much doesn't exist in this film. So, for the most part, this film has no music whatsoever. No music. But in the opening sequence, there is this jaunty piano bit, and it's kind of happy, but there's just something about it that just seems kind of out of place. Like, it's just the same few chords being repeated again and again, and there's just something a little bit unsettling about it. And then at the very end, we get music again. But throughout the middle parts of the film, you can say that there is score, but it's also pretty much diegetic noise. Diegetic? Yeah, diegetic noise, like white noise, ambient drone. And I really love horror movies that use ambient drone as a score because a lot of classic horror, especially in the 70s and 80s, are also very orchestral. But I love horrors that are more droney. It's just more disturbing and it just works way better. And I also really love the editing of Cure. I think the editing of Cure is one of the most, I guess, unique in terms of editing I've ever seen. A lot of conventional movie rules state that every single scene needs to be a certain amount of time. So if a scene is like 3 seconds long, you might as well remove this scene from your script. But for Kurosawa Kiyoshi, he doesn't care. A scene can be 3 seconds long, it could be 10 minutes long, it could be however long he likes it to be. The editing could be really slow, there could be a really long take, and then he could choppily edit something, like 2 frames, 3 frames just flashing in your face, and then it just abruptly stops. And because of this really weird, irregular, unpredictable pacing of the editing, it makes the film so much more disturbing and unsettling tonally. And again, especially towards the end where things start to get trippy, which I would also like to talk about a little bit, the editing starts to get really choppy. And usually choppy editing sucks, but it just works so well in Cure. And yes, let's talk about the trips, because a psychological horror is not complete without a tripping sequence. And I'm not trying to disappoint you or anything, but technically there is no trips in Cure. There are a couple of hallucination sequences, but I wouldn't say it's dragged on to the point where it sort of trips like a dream within a dream. Oh my god, everything's weird, reality is breaking apart, the characters are going insane kind of trip. And don't get me wrong, movie trips, psychological horror trips can be done really well. I mean, look at Perfect Blue, look at Audition once again. But the way Cure handles it is so much more subtle and it crawls under your skin instead of showing our main character just breaking down, full blown. We see him have a hallucination, but it's a quiet one. It's not a particularly horrifying one that jumps out at your face. It just quietly passes, and he continues to question his own perception after that. Quietly, subtly, nuance, that's the key word. And there are so many possible ways this film could fall into cliches and traps and these really trite tropes like amnesia, serial murders, unstable main character, visions and hallucinations. But the way this film handles it is so much more delicate and elegant, and I can't really at this moment describe why is it so delicate with how it handles cliches. Like, if you ask me to write a horror film script, I would love to because I love writing horror, but also I would mess it up really bad because the more I try to avoid these tropes, the worse it gets. And then I'm gonna try to compensate that by adding little bits, but then those bits would then fall into these cliches again, and it would just be a mind-numbing frustration for me. But Cure somehow avoided this issue, and I feel like I'm gonna have to rewatch this film like 3 more times, 4 more times, and analyze the story more in order to fully understand why is it so freaking effective. And I just love that horror doesn't have to be cheap and predictable. It could be high octane. It could be so much more deep and so much more cerebral than some people think it is. This is why I love East Asian horror so much more than uh, the retro, the vintage slasher monster horror of the West. I just love East Asian horror so much more because it's more about the existential dread. It's more melancholic. It's more thinking, less jump scares and blood and gore. I mean, sure, there are a lot of gory ass Japanese films. Don't get me wrong, but this is more about thinking and feeling, less about oh my god, a monster is chasing after me. Run. There are no cheap jump scares here. It's all slowly creeping up in your skin, and it's so effective. And yeah, sure, it's not the scariest thing ever. It doesn't completely shatter you, but in exchange, it's so much more high IQ. It's such a smart and cleverly written horror that you just can't say, wow, it's bad horror, because it's not bad. It's friggin' brilliant. It's a masterpiece. And I also really love the editing, the ending. I love the ending a lot. It doesn't just say a definitive conclusion. It doesn't just end off on either a bad ending or a happy ending. It's ambiguous. It's open-ended. It's very abstract, and it's open to interpretation. And the final shot is amazing. It's one of my favorite final shots of every movie ever. It's again quiet, subtle. We're observing from a far distance, and it just means so much. It means two things, and I'm not going to spoil it. And I'm sure there are already a few video essays. In fact, I've already seen a few video essays on YouTube talking about the ending, and I've seen a lot of interviews with Kurosawa Kiyoshi. I just became a huge fan of this film already, and I just can't wait to watch other Kiyoshi Kurosawa films like Kaido and Tokyo Sonata and Creepy and Seance and other art house J horror. Like damn, I just can't get enough of art house J horror. Feed me more. Feed me more, please. So, yeah, what can I say? I just love this film. I just love this film. Definitely one of the most well written and well directed and most cerebral and deeply disturbing and artistic psychological horror movies I've ever seen. Feeling a strong 9 out of 10. So, have you watched Cure from 1 to 10, which is rated, like it, and subscribe if you want more, and thanks for watching.